estimate the global carbon stocks over the planet that are stored on soils, and if you increase the stocks by this cat per mil per year rate, then you nearly offset the carbon emissions from the planet. So it is a very important potential sink for carbon.
So you came here today at the Global Symposium on Soil Organic Carbon, here at the headquarters of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. What did you come to present here exactly in regards to the 4p1000?
Well, today I presented some estimates on large regions of the world, 20 countries over the world, where we made an estimate of the carbon stocks. We made a bottom-up soil mapping of the carbon stocks, and then we asked to soil experts if the cat per mil initiative was feasible or not. And then we derived some figures about the feasibility of cat per mil initiative over the world.
So what expectations have you come up with?
Well, we came with expectation that the cat per mil initiative is nearly feasible. We know that it is not feasible at the same level for all the regions of the world. We know that the problem to solve are different too, but this is our work to do this now.
So the 4p1000, the 4p1000, is an international agreement that has been signed on under a Paris-Lima agreement, which is a UN agreement, so it's bounding nations together. So governments have signed on, over 25 governments, I think it is?
Yes, I think it is nearly 40 governments now that signed it. So it is, I would say it is a voluntary initiative. It's not so binding as it means,
yeah.
But it means that nearly 40 governments and nearly 200 organizations over the world believe that this cat per mil initiative is important, that we should act for carbon sequestration to mitigate climate change.
So 200 organizations, that's a lot of different people across a lot of different sectors. So we have the sectors of research, which is your respective sector, but we also have the sector of farming, public authorities, and also finance. So how do all these different sectors work together in liaising information from what you have to say, you the experts, you the people that are on the ground doing the scientific research?
Well, I think that these different sectors have different interest in increasing the soil carbon stocks over the world. For instance, the farmers' associations are very interested into increasing carbon production, crop productions through improving soil conditions, for instance. Other financial institutions may be interested in investment in carbon markets, for instance, and also some NGO might be interested just in protecting soils and biodiversity, because we know also that increasing organic matter in soils is in favor of a larger biodiversity.
So has there been any discussion on how we can pay land managers to basically farm carbon? Is there any discussion on this? I know that there is the upcoming Land Degradation Neutrality Fund that is being launched by the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification with an investment fund called Morova. So they're looking at funding ecological land use practices by involving the private sector, which really is a premiere. It really hasn't been, it really is the first time this is being done. Are there any hopes on this particular approach to scale up ecological land use, actions for ecological land use, to scale up action on the ground with the data that your community is working on?
Well, I'm not sure I can answer this question yet now. I think the discussion is ongoing about carbon market, etc. And well, I think we will work together, soil scientists and also specialists of economy, specialists of social science, of farming, economy, to try to fix this. But I think it's too early to
Yes.
give a response now.
So it really is just the beginning of a conversation,
Yes.
a conversation that will, we hope that will turn into action on the ground. What are your hopes for the future in regards to this conversation?
I think my hopes to the future is that we will raise even more countries and even more organizations than we have now. I think 40 countries maybe is not sufficient. I think we are also missing big countries that are big carbon that have big carbon emissions, and so I think we have to make an effort to try to convince them to join. This is my main concern now.
The 4p1000 really is the very first time that governments have come together, and basically what they're saying is that if we put agriculture at the way we deal with climate change, we can contribute in reversing its tendency. Now, this is something that isn't understood by the greater public. Do you think there needs to be public awareness on this?
Yes, of course. We need to raise some public awareness about carbon sequestration effects, and we should not lie. We should not say that we're going to stop all the greenhouse gas effect by storing carbon source. What we what we can do, is just to do some mitigation and to use soils to mitigate climate change for, I would say, several decades of years, and then also to use this carbon management to improve the soil's conditions and to improve also the food security over the planet. So this is a win-win situation. We are winner against climate change, but we are also a winner for food production and food security.
Carbon is one thing. There are also other greenhouse gases that soils manage. So we can talk about nitrous oxide, we can talk about methane, but we won't go into too much detail. What do you think is missing? Do you think, you as a researcher, there are areas that should be covered that are missing and that might frustrate certain others of your colleagues?
Yes, I think talking about carbon only is not enough. You're right. When you talk about greenhouse gases, you should take into account N2O and also CH4. And of course, if
methane and nitrous oxide.
Yes, nitrous oxide and methane. And of course, if you look at soils and if you look at agriculture, we know that soils in agriculture is a large emitter of nitrogen oxides, for instance. So there's a lot of research to do about this, and especially about the effect of fertilizers on nitrogen emissions. And I would say, if I take the point of view of CH4, then there is a lot of research to do also about rice soils, for instance. All the flooded soils of the planet, and also about methane emissions by growing cattle.
One last question. How do you welcome this global symposium on soil organic carbon, which really is a premiere, a first, in experts from around the world gathering over 3 days. This has been a packed conference with over 500 delegates. How do you welcome this?
I think this is a very good initiative, because it is a scientific initiative, but it is also a kind of policy initiative, because it is welcomed by the FAO, by the United Nations, and so for the first time, I would say soil carbon is recognized by all the community, the policy community, but the research community and the farmers community over the world.